Hi, Spicewood kiddos. It's Miss Rayborn here. Last week we did some drawing of a sarcophagus, and we had looked at some examples of a sarcophagus and the things that you would find traditionally on a sarcophagus, and we did some drawing. But before we talk about our painting, I wanted to show you an example of a sarcophagus that Miss Rayborn has. And this, of course, is not a real one. It's just made out of some plaster. Miss Rayborn bought it in a museum store. But I wanted you to have a chance to look at it. I'm going to try to hold it kind of close so that you can look at the details of the headdress, the stripes and patterns that you might see. Oftentimes you would also see feathers and things like that, possibly instead of stripes. Here we can see the cobra, which is a symbol of power, which you learned about with Miss Deb. We can also see here that they are holding in their arms a crook, which is this one right here, and a flail, which are the symbols of power in Egyptian culture and history. And we learned a little bit about drawing and adding something to celebrate Ma'at, which is the goddess who decides if your soul gets to go to the good afterlife or the bad. Do you see these beautiful feathers here? They look like her feathers. This is how they're sort of paying attention to Ma'at and showing her and honoring her. And then, of course, we see lots of writing and hieroglyphics. I hope that you guys can see that there in the video, that there are lots of examples of hieroglyphics, along with those really beautiful necklaces with lots of pattern. Also, the whole thing is really covered with pattern. I'm going to turn so that you can have kind of a closer look at what the sides even might look like. Now, a real sarcophagus would be decorated not only on the front and on the sides, but also on the back, which mine is not. And it also would have been decorated inside, which this one is not. So there's just a quick look at an example, a model of a sarcophagus that Miss Rayborn has at school that I wanted you to have a chance to see. So we're gonna do some painting today of our drawing that we started last week. So you need your paper from last week. You'll need a little tub of water for yourself that won't tip over while you're painting. You'll need your paint palette. These paints look a little bit different than yours. I actually have less choices than you do. You have more choices than I do, but that's okay. And I would also like to have a little paper towel or something to wipe with. And then this is the paintbrush that came with my paint set. So I have that one. If you happen to have a bigger paintbrush that you want to use around the house, that's great too. Or if you just have the one, that's totally fine. So when we start to paint, there's always just a few tips and tricks that Miss Rayborn gives people before they begin. So I'm going to start to paint a pattern in the top of my headdress. And before I can begin to paint, I have to get my paintbrush wet first. So I kind of wet my paintbrush, and it had a lot of water on it, so I just kind of wiped on the side to make sure it wasn't dripping. The next thing is that when we get our paints out of our paint palette, we want to just gently kind of tickle the top of your paints. Every once in a while, see how I'm just tickling the top of my paint? I'm turning it to the side so you can see what I mean. Every once in a while, someone will really smush their paintbrush in there like this and spin it around. The reason that's bad is it's going to make a hole in your paints, and it's also going to mess up your paintbrush. So remember to just tickle the top of your paintbrush. Now I'm going to try to make a pattern in my headdress. So I'm going to paint a pattern of getting just the tiniest bit more water to get the little stripe that's out there. It's going to be red, and then I'm not sure yet. I might leave it white, or I might choose yellow or green, but I'm going to start with my red. So got a little bit more on my paintbrush, and then I skipped one. Using a crayon to draw the outlines. Again, I'm just dipping my paintbrush into the water really gently before I tickle the top of my red to get a little more red paint as I go. Now, since we used a crayon when we were painting, the good news is that it's going to hold this color from this color pretty well from touching each other. So I'm going to rinse out my paintbrush because I'm switching to a new color, and I'm going to wipe it on the side. I also can check on my paper towel by wiping it and just making sure that red isn't coming off, so I know that it's clean and I won't accidentally be mixing. So I'm gonna I think I'm gonna make my, the face of my sarcophagus kind of goldeny. I was inspired by this sarcophagus, which is golden. And so I'm gonna paint in that goldeny color for a face. And again, I'm just tickling the top of my paints. I'm being extra careful not to accidentally smush my paintbrush too much and cause a problem with my paints because I'm digging a hole in my paints, or because I'm smushing my paintbrush, which will eventually make it not really work well anymore. So I decided to make this sort of background area behind my wings and my beautiful scarab beetles a goldeny color. So I'm painting around that. One of Miss Rayborn's good tricks about painting is that if you know something else, I was painting with this beautiful golden yellow. If I know something else is going to be golden yellow, I should go ahead and just paint it now while I have lots of golden yellow on my paintbrush. That way I'm not wasting my paints. So I'm going to go ahead and paint everything that's going to be yellow at the same time so that I'm not rinsing any of my good paint in my water and wasting it. So I think these are all of the parts. Actually, I might make, let's see, maybe I'll make this row a golden color. And then I'll think about some other, maybe behind these lotus flowers, because I'm going to make them a color. And then I think I might be done with yellow, so I could rinse out my paintbrush. Now, of course, you can pause the video anytime you want to as you're painting and get yourself kind of caught up. You can watch the whole thing and then paint for yourself afterwards. It's really up to you. If you want to go back to another section and watch more of the directions, you can always pause and rewatch the video anytime you want to. So I switched over to green. I rinsed out my paintbrush really well, and I tickled the top because we know that's important. And I switched over to a green color. So I'm gonna paint everything that's going to be green on my sarcophagus while I have the green on my paintbrush. I think I might also make a pattern in the bottom here, and I might make a zigzag green. So the one on this side would also need to be green. And then a different color. So I'm gonna skip one and paint one because I'm creating a pattern. This would be an example of an A-B pattern because I'm doing every other line. A, B, A, B, A, B. This one would be green again. So this is going to be the last of what I'm going to paint in green paint. I want to make sure I get this one over here so that I don't have to get green paint on my brush or wash off or be wasteful with anything. So now that I've done all my green, I'm going to rinse out my paintbrush. I'm going to wipe it clean, make sure no green is coming off anymore. And I think this time I'm going to switch to a blue. Now, I think I'm going to make this pattern here a blue, and I'm going to have to be careful because I just painted with green there, and I don't want them to accidentally mix, so I need to go kind of slow in my spots. Now, while I have that blue on my paintbrush, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do all of the blue spots because I said I was making an A-B pattern. So if the blue is A and the green is B, I have A-B, A-B, for example, A-B, 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 basic A-B pattern. This one goes kind of off the edge. I got a little bit on the table, but that's okay. I can always wipe it up later. That's why I have my napkin right here with me. Now, I think I might leave my wings, my feathery wings for Ma'at. I don't want them to be white. Oh, but I just realized I wanted these beautiful flowers to be blue, so I should paint them quickly before I rinse off my paintbrush because I don't want to be wasteful of my paints. lotus flowers. I also realized I forgot that I wanted to make this part of the necklace red. Should have taken care of that when I had red on my paintbrush. Teachers forget too. I think my last color that I'm gonna use in here is gonna be some purple. So I got my paintbrush cleaned off. I'm tickling the top again. I'm just making sure I'm being gentle. I'm not smushing my paintbrush. I think it's gonna be red, then purple, red, then purple. And I'm actually liking the way that this purple looks so much. Purple in a lot of cultures is a sign of royalty. It's a color that symbolizes royalty. I think I'm actually gonna make my wings purple. I think I need a little bit more purple on my sarcophagus. Now, as I'm finishing up with my purple, I have a couple things to think about. Right now, I still have a totally empty background. I haven't painted it at all yet. It's the color of the paper. And I don't think I want to leave it white. I want my sarcophagus to really look like it's kind of popping out from the page. I want it to really stand out. So I'm gonna use a bigger paintbrush because it's a big area. If you don't have a bigger paintbrush, that's okay. I'm just gonna switch over to that. And then I'm gonna get some black to paint in my background. Now I might have to tickle my black quite a bit, and it might end up looking kind of more like gray than like black, but that's okay. And I'm gonna do my best to get off the edge of the paper. And what I mean by that is I'm not gonna get this close to the edge of the paper and then stop, right? Because that looks like I just kind of, I stopped doing it. Like, look at that. So if you accidentally, another teacher trick, you can take your paper towel if you want to. You can put it underneath your paper if you're worried about accidentally getting paint on a fancy table or something at home. You can put it underneath there to paint. So I'm painting my background this sort of grayish black color. I think this is gonna help my sarcophagus look like it's popping out. It's kind of make it special and it'll make it stand out. The other thing that I could do while I have some black is I could put some details in my feathers if I wanted to. It's still a little bit wet. I also could add some patterns to the golden parts of my sarcophagus because it started to dry just a little bit. And I remember from looking at this one that it was full of patterns. So if I wanted to, since this yellow's had a chance to dry just a little bit, I could put some patterns to look like textures on there on my sarcophagus. But I have to finish painting my background. So please remember to paint your paper edge to edge, like this. And Miss Rayborn is going to make a place where you can share your painting of your sarcophagus in Schoology. Now, what would be super important about that though, is that you wait until after your painting is dry to take your picture to put into Schoology. So Miss Rayborn's gonna give you lots of time, more than a week, to turn in your picture of your beautiful sarcophagus painting, because I don't want anybody picking it up right now or moving it to take a picture of it, because the paint is wet and your paints might drip and move and mess up your beautiful painting. So for now, just let it dry. I'm gonna rinse off my paintbrushes, clean them off, put the lid back on my water, close up my paint palette and clean up for myself. And I'm gonna let this dry. And then when it's had a chance to dry, you'll be able to take a picture and upload it to share in Schoology so that I can see your beautiful artwork. So bye for now.